I'm Matthew Malcolm with American Vineyard Magazine, reporting to you from the annual Tree and Vine Expo here at the Stanislaus County Fairgrounds. We're happy to be here. We've got growers and all sorts of folks from the industry here today. One of our speakers was Michael Miller from the California Association of Wine Grape Growers. Always does a fantastic job updating the industry on what's going on in the legislative front. We've always got problems to deal with, but hopefully we got some solutions. And recently, one of the COG-sponsored bills got signed, and that doesn't happen every day, So we got to count our successes. We've got this legislation is going to support more groundwater recharge in California. Tell us about it.
Sure. So COG-sponsored SB 659. It's by Senator Angela Gashby of Sacramento. It's co-sponsored by the Regional Water Authority in Sacramento. Basically what we did, we brought together a variety of ag groups, water providers, all these different interest stakeholders on water issues to put together a plan for how do we, with the climate change world we live in, how do we look down the road and making sure that we have a sustainable, reliable supply of water for growers and for all of California. And what we've looked at is that the reality of the world today is we can't rely on the snowmelt the way we used to. It's coming a different way. When we get rain, we have to capture that rain and we have to store it, meaning we have to put it underground and save it for later. That means you have to have a system in place and a plan in place to make that happen. So that's what SB 659 does, is it puts us on a plan, a long-term plan for how we're going to capture water when we have these rain events that provide the water. How do we capture it then and put it underground? And part of the effort is to make sure that we've got the infrastructure in place. So last year when we had the huge big storms, Governor Newsom, to his credit, put out an executive order saying, hey, we've got to do something to make sure we capture this water. So flood, ag land, keep that water as long as you can, let it go underground, and then we have it. There are all kinds of issues around doing that as an emergency regulation because people just weren't ready for it.
Right.
So we did some of it, but we didn't do enough of it. So we want to make sure that when that happens, and we think it's going to happen more often than not, right? That every X numbers of years, we're going to get these kinds of winters with all this water. We need to have a plan in place for how we're going to catch it, how are we going to capture it, how are we going to put it underground, how are we going to put that system in place. And that's what SB 659 does, is it creates that plan and looks down the road and making sure we're prepared when we get those big winter events.
Now, does that account for, on-farm recharge, or is this irrigation districts that are or the government setting aside more land to groundwater recharge? How does this directly impact the growers, aside from the ability to capture more water for the state?
So it's all the above. For a grower, we've had growers who were in the Kings River area where they diverted water and they basically flooded the vineyard and let the water percolate into the groundwater that way. That's one way of doing it. There's a permitting process that has to happen for all that. There's a red tape you have to go through. But putting a plan in place, we believe that we're going to have growers better prepared and more work will be done in advance so that when it happens, we're ready and we can make immediate efforts to capture that water. Because when you're looking at flood protection, you're looking at all these different issues, you have to have thought about it in advance and be prepared for it. And ideally, if we can get some of this streamlining done, for the permitting process, we can do a lot of work. Remember that the Governor Newsom is already really on board with this when he fast-tracked the site's reservoir recently. He signed an executive order saying, we're going to do a fast track of the CEQA, meaning that they've only got 270 days to challenge the CEQA process, and they're going forward with sites. That's a big push to get sites done, and that's the kind of thing that we need to happen with groundwater recharge as well. We need to accelerate these projects and make them happen immediately.
Because we need them, and we need them now, or yesterday.
Yes.
Right?
Indeed.
So we really appreciate your ongoing efforts with the California Association of Wine Grape Growers to support growers and things like this. It's really nice to see success, in Sacramento and in the nation. So thank you for the good work that you do. Read more about this in American Vineyard Magazine. I'm Matthew Malcolm, CaliforniaAgNet.com.